Hello, everybody who's joined the call. Thank you very much for taking your time to be a part of this webinar. I just wanted to inform everyone who's already here that we're waiting for 2 or 3 minutes for a few more people to join. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to this event. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our webinar on the Drones for Sustainable Development Goals Toolkit. This is a event that's being organized by Unicef Intervention with collaboration from the International Civil Aviation Authority. In this webinar, we'll be going through the SDG Toolkit as well as Icao's work in drones. So to start, I'm going to hand us over to Sunita Groth from the Venture Fund, and she will speak more about the work we've been doing and introduce the webinar.
Thanks so much, Edmund, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this webinar. I have the pleasure of welcoming you all, and thank you for joining. I won't go into a whole lot of detail or waste a whole lot of time. We have far more exciting content to cover throughout the session, but maybe just a few words on kind of the work that UNICEF has been doing in this space together with partners over the last couple of years. Has really been focused on a few explorations in terms of where drones could add value to the work that UNICEF does. The two main areas that you'll hear about a little bit more today as well are really around delivery as well as collection of imagery. The third area that we've proposed for further exploration and hope to get into next year is looking at how drones could improve access to connectivity as well. And the main ways in which we've been doing that is really looking at how to create a supportive regulatory environment at the country level. So through the establishment of drone testing corridors, investing in new solutions, mostly software as digital public goods, so as open source solutions, and through our colleagues that are running the African Data and Drone Academy, looking at how local capacity and local skills building can really help build up the ecosystem around drones, technology development and deployment for the particular use cases that we're interested in. The main tool that we have to be able to do this is our venture fund. And I do want to just kind of direct you towards that as it might be relevant for some of the solutions that you're also developing. And that might be an interesting funding source for those particularly that are more on the side of developing new solutions, piloting those as part of kind of, new businesses or new ventures that they're establishing. And really the venture fund is based on a few key kind of investment theses that are around the value of developing open IP. And you'll hear about that a fair bit more today. Investing in communities that otherwise are underrepresented in venture capital and in seed funding for new technology solutions. And then also looking at how UNICEF as an organization can help provide some of the underlying infrastructure that can help drone-based solutions go to scale. And so those are, really some of the work that we're proud of, and you'll hear a bit more today. But really, I think most importantly has generated some lessons for us in terms of what are some of the ingredients that are needed to pilot new technology solutions in general, and then also specifically in the drone space. And some of those lessons have really been very crucial in establishing the Digital Public Goods Alliance. Again, you'll hear a little bit more about that group today, but it's a platform that was launched together with UNICEF and the government of Norway, government of Sierra Leone, and iSpirit, a think tank out of India, focusing on the importance of open source solutions in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we're really excited to launch this toolkit today as one of the pieces of work that we're doing together to help advance some of the work that the Digital Public Goods Alliance is doing. We're looking at sourcing solutions that could qualify eventually as digital public goods and really benefit from that platform that the Alliance is now providing to match those solutions with those who could potentially use them. So that could be government partners, private sector, others that are interested in using these solutions to help them accelerate achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So finally, we're excited to have you all join us today, and you'll see that we have some requests to you as well to help us grow this toolkit. It's a living document, a living place online where we're constantly looking to grow and improve it. And be able to showcase the important work that's happening by many others in this space. So I'll end it here, hand back over to Edmund, and really looking forward to hearing more about it and the discussion we might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sunita, for your introduction to the toolkit and to the webinar and the work that we've been doing. So my name is Edmund Noni. I am the drone specialist with the Office of Innovation. And today I'll be going through the Drones for Sustainable Development Goals Toolkit. Thank you. So as Sunita said, UNICEF has been doing work in various types of innovation, but specifically with drones, we've been focused on medical deliveries and also collection of aerial imagery to make decisions around community management or emergencies. And in 2022, we hope to start doing work using drones for connectivity. Next slide, please. So some of our key achievements that we've had over the last couple of years has been, one, improving the space that governments and private sector have to test these drone use cases by creating drone corridors. Now, a drone corridor is a segmented airspace and or restricted airspace and land area for drones to be tested and drone capabilities to be proven before you then take those drones and apply them in communities. A second area that we've been investing in is in identifying and supporting digital public goods. Later in this presentation, I'll go more into what a digital public good is and why it's an important area for technology scaling globally, especially in the humanitarian and development fields. And finally, we've been investing in building local capacities through the African Drone and Data Academy, which also through this toolkit and other work that we're doing will soon become completely open for, well, it's already open now, but we'll soon be scaling that through the DPG structure. Next slide, please. So here's one of the results that we have to show, which we're very proud of. In 2018, we implemented a pilot for delivering vaccines in Vanuatu. The outcome of this we were able to deliver over 1,000 vaccines to children in 48 last mile locations. This was important because in all of those locations, it's quite difficult to get medical commodities to those places. So drones provided a very needed intervention in that case. Next slide, please. In 2019, we also started work doing medical commodity deliveries in Malawi. And Malawi was also one of our first permanent drone corridors. So with the Malawi drone corridor and the Malawi government, we were able to test companies providing drone delivery services. And from 2019 till date, we've done over 27,000 vaccine deliveries in Malawi and over 95,000 deliveries of antibiotics. And the work in Malawi is still continuing with new engagements being signed that will continue on into 2020 and further. Next slide, please. In 2019, also, we invested in a drone corridor in Kazakhstan. And this drone corridor has been very instrumental in increasing the capacity in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Afghanistan around search and rescue. These countries have areas that are very mountainous and difficult to do surveillance for search and rescue in. So drones as a tool has been able to be introduced to the Kazakhstan Emergency Response Agency, and they've used that very well to be able to improve their emergency response and search and rescue capabilities. So this just shows the different use cases in development and use cases in saving and improving lives that drones represents. Next slide, please. And finally, we launched our third permanent drone corridor in Sierra Leone in 2019 as well. And currently there are 3 drone corridors. As I mentioned earlier, there's Malawi and Kazakhstan and Sierra Leone. With the 3 different corridors, we have different focuses that each corridor is specialized in. Next slide, please. So for the Malawi drone corridor, we're very much focused on testing beyond visual line of sight operations and high volume medical deliveries. And a testament of that is the over 27,000 vaccine deliveries and 95,000 antibiotics deliveries that we've done in Malawi. Malawi drone corridor has been host to over 12 drone companies who have come in to use the corridor to test their equipment, to test their ability to execute. And then those lessons and those studies and capabilities have then been integrated into the national supply chain. So it's a very influential piece of infrastructure in the airspace management and in the drone use case developments in Malawi, but also in the rest of Africa and even globally. Next slide, please. As I said, the second drone corridor was in Kazakhstan, and the focus there is testing and developing solutions for emergency response, specifically search and rescue in extreme weather conditions in the global north. as climate change is becoming, continues to be an issue everywhere in the world, drones definitely can play a pivotal role in being able to address climate issues, both in terms of mapping for management of land and management of environmental risk, but also, as we've identified, when an environmental emergency does happen and you need to help people, drones are also a very important tool. Next slide, please. And the most recent drone corridor is the drone corridor in Sierra Leone. This drone corridor is focused on mapping for climate issues in the global south. So there's a lot of testing around mapping and risk management for monsoons and floods. But also we've been fortunate to have the first medical delivery in the Sierra Leone drone corridor done last week, Friday, on the 19th. And moving forward from that, there'll be medical deliveries in over in 250 locations. Sierra Leone is also a pathfinder country for digital public goods, and the Sierra Leone drone corridor is a key piece of infrastructure for testing drone-based DPGs. Next slide, please. And another key area that we're investing in is the Drone Academy. Now, this Drone Academy is important because for drones to be sustainable and financially viable, we have to have local capacities in the countries where they're being used. So the Data Academy is enabling that strengthening of human resource, which these projects will need. So we've so far been able to train 25 graduates from the 9 different countries. And we're looking forward to expanding the ways that we can deliver the course content and make that more available globally. Next slide, please. And of course, we have been investing in the development of digital public goods. Now, how we invest in developing digital public goods is by investing in drone companies. So private sector companies who are building open source solutions that can be taken and used in the public space and scaled very quickly. What's very important to us and the Office of Innovation and Unicef in general is that our projects and products have strong open source DNA. And all of the 6 drone companies we've invested in so far operate according to that. And we've given them $100,000 each to develop their solutions, which, as Sunita mentioned, is something that if you are also in the space doing or looking to do work, open source work for a product that can be used for impacting lives, then the venture fund is definitely something you should be looking out for and applying to. Next slide, please. So Cloudline is an example of one of the companies that we've invested in, which we're very excited about. They've developed a drone airship, which can be used for logistics and supply chain deliveries, but it also could be used to carry broadcast equipment for internet and telephone service. And now we're going to watch a very short video of of Cloudline's technology. Okay, so that was a short video of the Cloudline airship. Now, if we go back to the slides, so the Cloudline project is an example of UNICEF seeding new and important innovations, because with the airship, they have over 20 hours of endurance, which for the typical drone, you're usually talking about 90 minutes to maybe 3 hours for an electric powered drone. And with Cloudline, they can do over 20 hours, and they can also carry a lot more payload. So this brings us to the Sustainable Development Drones for Sustainable Development Goals Toolkit. Now, what this toolkit does is it takes all of that work that I've just highlighted, and we're putting it all in one place for other people to take and use for your projects. So the toolkit is a collection of open source software, data sets, artificial intelligence models, standards and regulations, courseware, and guides. Now, all of this can be used by government or private sector. Next slide, please. So the content of the toolkit is divided into 6 different sections, being analytics, guides, learning, regulations, software, and startups. All of the content has to be open source, and all of the content must align with the digital public goods criteria. Now, we're going to go to the website briefly, but in the interest of time, I'll encourage you to go to the website yourself at a later date and look through everything. And we'll put the link in the chat. So this is the Drones for SDGs Toolkit. For quick reference of a particular tool that you might be looking for, or a particular thing that's of interest to you, you can just go straight to the search bar and locate it. If we scroll down, we now have the different sections. And the one section that I'll talk about specifically today is the About section of the toolkit. So if you go to the About section of the toolkit, here we talk about how the toolkit was created, who is involved, and very importantly, if we go down, how to make a contribution to the toolkit. So we have 4 different criteria. We also have a form that should be filled. And so if you fill that form, we ask you various questions about your project, its ownership, how it works. Once you submit that information to us, we'll review it over 90 days, and then we'll provide feedback on whether your solution or your project meets the criteria that we're looking for. And if it doesn't, if we can work with you to get it to a place where it does. So again, I encourage you to go and look through the toolkit yourselves. And I'm sure that you'll find various interesting tools there. If we can go back to the slides, please. So there are 2 audiences we want for the toolkit. One, other UN agencies, governments, nonprofit and private sector who want to use some of the analytics tools we've developed, or the guides, or the learning tools, or the regulations in developing their own drone interventions. And then the second audience we're looking for the toolkit are developers of drone solutions, open source drone solutions. So as Sunita said, this is a living platform, and we want to encourage as many people to make contributions to this platform as possible. The Drone for SDG Toolkit is on GitHub, and so that makes it a lot easier. So please, if you have projects, feel free to reach out to us. And once we've made sure that it aligns with our criteria, we can add it to the repository and encourage others to also look at and utilize your tool. Next slide, please. So the type of contributions we're looking for are open data sets. So if you've run a drone project and you've done imagery or you've done another type of data collection, and you're willing to make that data open for other people to use it and maybe train artificial intelligence algorithms on it, then that's very interesting for us. And we're also interested in AI and machine learning projects that might be out there. We're also looking for technical and decision-making guides. We're also open courseware and training programs and non-commercial standard operating procedures and regulatory frameworks, as well as open software and hardware. So as you saw from the different sections, we do hold software products, but we also hold open source hardware products. And the drone airship from Cloudline is an example of a open source hardware product. Next slide, please. So the criteria for you to contribute to the Drone DPG Toolkit is that the project must use open standards, open data, open source, and open innovation in developing, hosting, publishing, and supporting it. The project that you contribute also has to be relevant to at least one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And the project has to have very clear ownership. And finally, whatever you're contributing to the toolkit also has to use the correct open source licenses. Next slide, please. Now, why we think that it's important and why it would be advantageous to you is because the Drones for SDG Toolkit puts your platform or puts your project on a global platform. So the Drones for SDG Toolkit is something that Unicef country offices will very much be encouraged to utilize and look at whenever the organization is looking to do drone interventions. Also, our alignment with the Digital Public Goods Alliance means that as the different projects in the SDG Toolkit are ready, we will also be pushing them to the DPG Alliance for review and nomination as a digital public good. Now, as I indicated, how you can contribute is to go to the Drones for SDG Toolkit website and go to the About Toolkit section, and that's where you find the submission form. Next slide, please. So we've been mentioning the DPGs quite a lot. And now what a DPG, a digital public good, or the DPG standard is a set of specifications and guidelines for open source software, open data, open AI models, open standards, and open content that do no harm and are relevant to attaining the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Digital Public Goods Alliance is an alliance of the government of Norway, UNICEF, and the Office for the Special Envoy to Technology, the UN Office for Special Envoy to Technology, and several other partners. And what this alliance does is it identifies and curates a lot of tools that can be used globally, and it promotes those tools to different countries, governments, and large development agencies for those agencies to make use of those tools in their projects. Where it's advantageous to people to make contributions to the toolkit is that these projects or products will be seen by these large global institutions. And in as much as it's open source, you as a developer or your company may have the opportunity to provide technical support to your products that's within the toolkit. So it quickly enables you to scale your products or your project, your open source product or open source project. As we've seen has been the case with the companies that we've invested in. So several of the companies that we've invested in are currently in talks to deploy their products in various countries globally to do on behalf of UNICEF or other organizations. Next slide, please. And with that, also to deploy any of these solutions, or in some cases to develop these solutions, you need funding. So the UNICEF Venture Fund is a venture fund that seeds new innovation, and we provide up to $100,000 in early stage investments in technology. So if you have a platform, if you have a project that can be developed and become a part of the SDG Toolkit, then please be on the lookout for a call for applications from the UNICEF Venture Fund that's focused on drones. Next, and I think that should be it. Yes, and that concludes my presentation for today. And I'll hand over to JC Shine from the International Civil Aviation Authority.
Thank you, Edmund. It's great to be here. I'm going to share my screen for a very brief presentation. I have 5 slides, so this is the least captivating segment because I'm going to be talking about regulations. So I will share. Okay, I'm really happy to speak to you about the Icao model UAS regulations. I did assist in the compilation of the regulations during my secondment to Icao from the FAA. I just recently returned back to the FAA. But before I begin, I would like to very quickly introduce a colleague with whom I worked at Icao. Some of you may know him. Jose Tomas Odini. Jose, could you turn on your camera? I don't know if that's an option, but I would just say Jose is a pilot with a military background for more than 25 years. He joined the World Food Program, Aviation Safety and Services for 15 years. And then he began his secondment with Icao. He and I worked on some tasks related to RPAS and UAS, and he would be a very good point of contact for you. Jose, would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you, JC. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I am delighted to accompany you in this presentation and whatever I can do to support the different projects from Icao and a secondment from the WFP or sister organization. Of course, I will be very happy to do so. Thank you very much, Shine.
Thank you, Jose. Thanks very much. So back to the model regulations. The model regulations were developed to assist member states establish national regulations. They cover all of the safety features required to help a state begin their regulatory framework, again, developed for those who need assistance with developing a regulatory framework. These regulations can be incorporated into a state's overall regulatory framework in their current form, or they can be used to supplement UAS regulations that are already in place. Now, the regulations are fashioned in such a way that a member state can insert the value that suits their risk tolerability. And what do I mean by that? For example, the choice of operating a drone that weighs, say, 150 kilograms versus one that weighs 25 kilograms is going to produce different hazards. The consequences of those identified hazards are mitigated as much as possible, but the remaining risk that cannot be mitigated translates into risk that the CAA or relevant authority has to be okay with. So for the value in this example, which is the weight of the UA, the member state can change this to a weight more agreeable to their risk tolerance level. There are other values regarding altitude or operational constraints that have values that, again, can be substituted with what the member state wants to tolerate or can tolerate. Now, the primary provisions, there's Part 101, which is the open category and includes standard operating conditions and comprise UA that weigh 25 kilograms or less. Part 102, or the specific category, involves UA that weigh more than 25 kilograms and require an approval by the CAA in the form of either a UAS operating certificate or a UA authorization for short-term operations. The certified category are the SARPs, which stands for Standards and Recommended Practices, that are under development at Icao in the Remotely Piloted Aircraft Systems, or RPAS section. Another area where the Icao model regulations provide flexibility is that with regard to Part 149. Part 149 establishes an approved aviation organization, an AAO, that can be delegated by the CAA or the relevant authority to perform specific aviation tasks. The Icao model UAS regulations cover registration, remote pilot certification, the option for a manufacturer to declare the demonstrated capabilities of their UA for a specific operation. This involves a means of compliance that explains how the determination was made. And then there's the Advisory Circular 102-37 regarding carriage of dangerous goods, and the companion advisory circulars to parts 101 and 102, the regulations explained in common terms. Now, we all realize the importance of a harmonized UAS regulatory environment. The member states continue to ask Icao for assistance in this regard. They want to know how Icao is going to help them in terms of creating this regulatory framework. So just last week, Icao launched a new option called the UAS IPAC, or Implementation Package. And this is a package that contains documentation, tools, courses, and an assigned subject matter expert, or SME, to facilitate the implementation of UAS regulations and the oversight framework to enable safe UAS operations. So this is a great option for states to consider. And on this slide, it identifies the goals and the target audience. So this concludes my presentation on the regulations. Thank you for your kind attention. And on this slide, you can see the link to the Icao UAS model regulations, where you can download those along with the companion advisory circulars and guidance material. And I also took the liberty of putting up Jose's email address, just in case you might want to be in touch with him. So thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, JC. That was a great presentation. And thank you, Jose, also for joining the call. So what we'll do now is we want to give the audience the opportunity for any Q&A that you may have. So please, yeah, there's a Q&A. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen in Zoom. So please, any questions that you may have, feel free to type them in there. I think I saw one question whilst I was presenting, which was what winds can the blimp operate in? I believe the Cloudline blimp can operate in winds as high as 40 miles per hour. But also, if you go to the SDG Toolkit, there is a direct link to Cloudline's technology and their website, where you can see all of the data that they have on the airship currently. They're consistently making changes and they're consistently improving it. They've improved it from being able to do payload of 10 kgs. I believe now their payload is all the way up to 100. But it's a very fast evolving and fast moving product that they're working on. From Joel Ryan, can I download the iPack? I believe you can. If you go to the GitHub repository, you should be able to access any file that you might need from the projects that we're talking about. So whilst we're waiting for more questions, I'd just like to add to what JC was talking about with the regulations. As many of you may know, having drones and drone solutions is great, but if you are living in a country where the laws or the airspace management doesn't really allow for drones to be flown at all, or getting the right permissions to be able to fly is difficult. That's where we saw the importance of developing a strong relationship with Icao, because they work with all the civil aviation authorities globally. So our work with them is really targeted at ensuring that governments can manage drones being in their airspace whilst mitigating the risk that drone operations might be able to pose in some cases. Now I see there's another question from Ognen. Any specific usage scenario that UNICEF is looking for? And does UNICEF support usage scenarios for agriculture and carbon sequestration? So the usage scenarios that UNICEF is looking for is anything that contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals. And as I'm sure you know, there are Sustainable Development Goals that are focused on forestry and climate change and management of carbon emissions. So in terms of agriculture and carbon sequestration, you would need to go to the Sustainable Development Goals website and check what you're doing against those goals. If what you're working on helps to reach one of those goals in some way, then yes, we would definitely support that work that you're doing. I'm just trying to pull up. So I've just put in the chat the SDGs. Please go to the SDG platform, and once your solution contributes towards those, we're definitely interested in learning more. And more specifically, we're definitely interested in supporting you. Are there any more questions? Greetings from Asia. How do I start a drone program in my region? First steps. Thank you, Adolfo. So UNICEF is trying to act as an enabler. The specific office that myself and Mara and Sunita work for is the UNICEF Office of Innovation. And it's our role to support UNICEF country offices in taking some of these innovative products and projects and implementing them where it's needed. So if it was a UNICEF, UNICEF drone program, then what's the case usually is that the UNICEF country office would reach out to us at the Office of Innovation, and then we would support them with technical assistance and also financial assistance. So UNICEF country offices can also apply to the venture fund for a financial contribution in starting a new drone intervention or a new intervention in one of the innovations that we're focused on. So for UNICEF intervention, so for a UNICEF drone program, the first step would be country office reaching out to Office of Innovation, and then we'll provide support. For anyone else, for someone outside of UNICEF, how you can start a drone program would be, one way would be to, especially if it's for impacts and development or humanitarian outcomes, you can look through the SDG Toolkit and take some of the learnings that we've gained and take some of the tools and use those tools to design your own program and to start what you need to do. An important partner, so for example, when we were establishing all the drone corridors, and specifically the Sierra Leone drone corridor, we had to make sure that the country had the right regulations in place to support drone operations. So what we did in their case is we took the Icao Model UAS regulations and we sat down with their legal officers agency, and they took that document and they kind of aligned it with the laws and requirements, the needs of Sierra Leone. So also in whatever region you're in, the other thing that we would have to work with you to check is what are the regulations in that region, in the different countries, and can the current regulations support what you need to do? And if they can't, then that's where we can pull Icao in to provide support and advice. Whilst we wait for more questions, I would, if Jose, Thomas, if you're interested in saying anything about the work that's ongoing now from Icao around drones, please feel welcome to do so if you want to make any comments around that.
Thank you, Edmond. Not at this stage. I think that all the discussions have been very precise, so I don't want to distract the attention of the audience on other issues. But since you gave me the opportunity, just to remark that we are ready to support, of course, and especially because many organizations are putting efforts on this to help harmonizing efforts across the globe as well. No, not only, but all the best with this initiative. It's great, and of course, it will count on the support as needed from the ARPA team. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Jose. I do have one question actually for the audience. How many of you here are either working for an agency or in private sector, and you're interested in starting a drone program, or you think you're gonna look at the toolkit and see if you can use some of the products or the projects in the toolkit? Can people maybe type into the Q&A around what your what your interest is and if we can look forward to working with you in your use of the toolkit and the projects that are in there. Thank you, Ognen. That's very interesting. I'd actually love to be able to connect with you. So I will actually put my email in the chat for anyone who has more comments or needs more information, or would like to talk to UNICEF about what we're doing and any opportunities to collaborate and work together. Thanks, Ognen. So if you, perfect. Within the tools that we have in the toolkit, there is, if you go to the analytics section, there is a company called Bioverse, where they've developed an artificial intelligence to identify different types of plant species, especially around invasive plant species. They're also working on projects using drone imagery and machine vision to quickly identify important indicators for risk to crops and for risk around forestry management. So we've not only invested in things like medical response and medical deliveries and emergency response. We also have invested in companies that, we also have invested in projects that are focused on ag type of solutions. So I would love to be, and I'll take your email and definitely reach out, and we can discuss more after the call. And is anyone here in private sector who would be looking to make contributions to the toolkit or to use some of the tools, to look at some of the tools? Great, thank you, Rishikesh. That's great to know. Please, as I said, I've put my email in the chat. So feel free to reach out to me if you need more information and if you want further discussion. So thank you everybody for joining the call. I would like to say thanks a lot to Icao for the work that they've done with us so far. Thank you, JC and Jose specifically for taking the time to support the webinar. And I also, thank you so much. And I'd also like to say thanks to the audience members, colleagues from UNICEF and colleagues from the UN, as well as other colleagues from other organizations and agencies. And also thank you for any other audience members from private sector. We're looking forward to all of you joining us to do work on the toolkit, using the products, contributing projects. We're very happy to support in any way. I'm very happy to make myself available for conversations. So feel free to reach out and feel free to take advantage of the projects that we've put out there. And finally, thank you so much, Mara, for all the assistance that you've given today and throughout the development of this toolkit. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's joined the call.
Thank you, Edmund.
Okay, thanks everybody. And with that,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
we're going to end the webinar.